Hey good people, Batavia here. Welcome to my Chicago garden where everything is planted. Alright, so before we start pulling up garlic, harvesting things, I wanted to take a beat and share what the garden looks like. This is really the first time we've had an opportunity to take a step back and really enjoy the work we've been putting in for the last few months. But let's dig into the front yard garden, then we'll go ahead and pick up the backyard garden. So the street side flower bed, the perennial flower bed, I decided to try again this year a few more vegetables. So these are our scarlet runner beans. We actually put 2 of our green stalks out here this season. And I have basil that's growing here. We had less sunflowers that self-seeded this year, but that's okay. They're starting to reach some height and putting on a head. So we're going to enjoy those. That's probably the most commonly asked question. Are you doing sunflowers this year? So we are. Blueberries. So all of these berries were planted this year. Our sweet potatoes, the last time you saw them, they looked like they were on the struggle bus, but we had faith. We knew that a bit of care, really just water, sun, and time would allow them to take off. And I added one of my folding trellises here to give them an opportunity to climb. So we did our first couple of harvests, and when I say harvest, I mean quite literally 2 okras from these plants. That's one of the things you kind of have to balance. Some vegetable plants put on a cluster of food, and then others, they're onesie-twosies. But once these grow a bit more, I think we're going to have plenty of okra for this year, which I'm excited about. Every year we're doing something a little bit different in some of these areas. Sometimes we return to some methods. I've done climbing vegetables here before, and this year I feel pretty good about it. This was just the door to the original cage baby, like 1.0 version, and I've reused it over the years to trellis things like cucumbers. I think these were the first cucumbers we direct sowed. We have our 7-gallon grow bags here with peppers. Last year was the first year I did kind of something in front of this bed, and it worked out pretty well. So speaking of something that's going to come out pretty soon, our garlic. This was planted in the spring, which I've never done before, and I'm not sure if I want to do that again. The garlic hasn't looked great, but we'll see. These are some pole beans. I think these are Kentucky Wonder that I planted here. And this is, again, the other door to the original cage baby. Alrighty, so this is one of a few plantings of tomatoes. And I really should get in here and tie these up a little bit. We have a couple aromas, and then I think there's a beefsteak on the end. We only did 3. Then I have some volunteer basil that's in there. This is the shadiest spot probably in the garden, next to the porch. I've done tomatoes here before, and they've done well. Okay, so one of the first spaces that we have turned over, or in the process of turning over, where we had our broccoli. So I pulled like half of the bed up, planted out the corn. This corn went in later than I anticipated, but again, I feel pretty good about it. And then I'm going to pull up this broccoli, but we're going to replant that area. Let's go inside, where for years I have been trying to figure out the balance in this space. The wins are my strawberries. We did 3-tier GreenStalk planters here. They did really well so far this season. And then our beets, believe it or not, I transplanted these beets into this GreenStalk. I had them along this side of the bed, and I sowed them heavily, and so I just transplanted a bunch of them. It's about time to start harvesting these, and most of these beet leaves are really beautiful. Like, sometimes you end up tossing those kind of things because they're rattled and tattered, but most of these look really good. And I think I need to harvest these before we head into this next bit of heat. And I'm thinking about replacing them with some strawberry runners. All right, so the inside. I can remember being excited about expanding a little bit more of my gardening space a few years back by digging out these small cutouts inside and under the trellis. And each year there's a tinge of a struggle about what to grow and how it grows here. So I tried again, because this was the original vision, to be able to grow things that crawl up the trellis, basically on the inside versus in the bed. But we have the honey nut, which is all of the blossoms you see. Now, I can already tell this one wasn't pollinated, which is unfortunate. We'll see if this one made it. I do have male and female flowers. Here's another one. So that's not unusual, so I'm not worried. And then we have, I think it's the mango melon further on this end. And I think that's what has the smaller blooms here. And then on this side, because of the greed of the gardener, I couldn't let go my dill, because this is the closest I've come to actually having viable dill at the time that I'll be having like cucumbers to pickle as well. So I've left it there, but it completely shaded out the honeydew melon plant that I had in here, and then everything else that I let grow on the inside of the bed. There was another honeydew melon, so I think we're not going to see them this season. And then this is cantaloupe, which, yeah, little bitty thing there. We have black strawberry, which I really enjoyed. I only have one plant in the garden. It looks great. It was planted on 5/31, so that's just like 6 weeks. And then I have a Cherokee purple here. They're out in the wild. This is a volunteer. And I thought it was going to be chocolate sprinkle, but I think it's probably one of the Tumbling toms, which is okay. It's just a regular cherry tomato, either yellow or red, depending on which seeds dropped. These are some of the last planted peppers, and they don't look great. These are 5-gallon buckets. I know the buckets grow really well as far as the peppers go, because we did them in this same kind of setup last year. But yeah, these were planted at the end of June, like at the very beginning of July. I guess when I say the planting is done, I mean, that's not exactly truthful. I do have some things. This is oregano that I picked up. You can see it's starting to flower, and some rosemary. So my intention, and I have like 5 or 6 versions of this plan. Pulling up the garlic. I want to try to do fall potatoes, right? I really just almost bypassed planting potatoes in the spring. And so I'm thinking using one of these fire pits for fall potatoes, and then one for herbs, specifically herbs that have an opportunity to overwinter. I have had rosemary survive in my garden one winter, and I've had oregano survive several winters. So that's my thought process. I'm gonna grab my coffee. I'm gonna head to the backyard. So we've turned this GreenStalk over. This is the 7-tier leaf, and we're doing bush beans here. The entire planter is going to be bush beans. So they have germinated nicely. I'm going to go in and probably re-sow a couple of pockets. Okie doke. And our main planting of tomatoes, although we still have some floating around the garden in other places. 2 of our pineapple plants have really put on some size since we were last together. I don't see any fruit looking at the bottom yet. They were planted, gosh, I think it was like mid-May. So we're closing in on 2 months for these. This is the boxcar willy. It's always been a pretty big plant for me. And then it puts on a nice size red slicer. And then I have a couple of bell peppers here. And I did a hanging pot of mint. Beefsteak. All of these we started by seed, but they were super small when we put them into the garden, and we know that they'll catch up. Typically get the beginning of my tomato harvest like at the beginning of August, and so we still have some time here. These are sun gold and Cherokee purple. First time growing sun gold, believe it or not. I've been told it's one of the sweetest orange or yellow tomatoes, so I'm excited about that. This is Aroma. These are strawberries that we planted out a couple of years back, and they didn't produce a whole lot. If I go back and count, we may be like on the end of their life cycle, but they did produce runners. So we got a new opportunity to enjoy some fresh plants. All right, so we were talking about this. I think this was like behind the scenes on the Backyard Gardens podcast. My buddy Ben and I was sharing how I may have reached the end of that whole, my Chicago garden can produce cool weather crops in the summer, right? So my collards look good, My kale looks good, right? These are plants that prefer to grow in cooler weather. We do not have cooler weather. But my cabbage, and ever since I've been focused on having a spring garden, this is the latest I've planted them. I don't know. They're not looking great. They're like struggling to form a head. It's hotter than, I normally have these plants kind of at this stage. I have some yellowing here. These are kale pots, I'll call them. First time doing this. I love this idea. I love this setup. I don't know. We'll see how this year's bed, the heat, the late planting, how it influences how I garden going forward. Spoiler, it may not. I'll probably end up planting these earlier next season, but then I may fall into some of my late ways. We'll see. We're going to do a nice harvest of these greens before the heat comes. There's no sense in kind of having these plants at this size face that, so we'll do a round of kale and collards, which I'm looking forward to. All right, so that's the cage baby. So as a quick note, I typically film on a day like today. There's a bit of overcast, but I want to be fair to the garden. It never does the garden justice. Like, to see this space when there's sun trickling in, it's something. It really is something. All right, so few more spaces, or a bunch more. GreenStalk setup this year, a little bit different. We have the blackberry. We're doing tomatoes in this space. So I have some of these spots planted and some not, just based on anticipating the size we're going to get for these plants. The top tiers have more of the tumbling tom, which we'll see in a second. That's a little bit further along. The bottom, I'm doing like full-on tomatoes. There is a determinate and an indeterminate variety. And then I even have a squash. So this is either a yellow squash or zucchini. And then I have whichever one this isn't, is planted in the other GreenStalk over there. So these are the tumbling tom tomatoes. I really don't remember them putting on this nice of a size of tomato. Yeah, I know it was a cherry tomato, but these look really good. I grew them in pots last year, which is kind of the idea for them. They kind of cascade over the pot. But I don't know if it's the raised bed of it all. There are 3 plants along this line. So we did a mixture of yellow and red. I re-sowed this area, and these are the beets. Boy, are they having a hard time taking off. This is the elevated Vego garden bed. New addition to the garden. I normally don't let my bell peppers put on fruit when they're this small of a plant. I normally pay closer attention to them, and I'll pick the flowers off so they can get a larger size. These two got away from me. So I think what I want to do is harvest some of these as small peppers, and again, give the plant a chance to really put on some size, but I'm not sure. I have bell peppers sprinkled all throughout the garden, so there is that as well. Parsley, celery, a few onions, and they were planted much later than my main planting of onions, so they have small bulbs, which I think is kind of cool. And I've been using some of the greens here. There's also some green onions over here, but we can see they have been overrun by the tumbling tom tomatoes. All right, so we have the Glacier GreenStalk. This is the 5-tier. We did peppers. I try to do flowers in the bottom of my GreenStalks only because they're crawly things around here, animals. And it's just, I don't know, it's a mind thing where I'd rather, as they kind of maybe fiddle with the things that are closer to the ground, they be flowers, not something I'm going to eat. Every now and again I break that rule. So these are almost all bell peppers. I think there are a couple of serranos in there before I move out of this corner. All right. The one cabbage plant that looks like it's going to actually perform, it's under this netting. I don't remember the varieties anymore for these. And then I have some dino kale here. Oh, it looks so wonderful. All right, so let's get out of this corner. My head is on a swivel for all of our early morning critters that are going to be doing a garden walk as well, I guess. I try not to be a nervous Nelly, but I'm absolutely a nervous Nelly. All right, so don't let me forget about the grow bags on the other side of the porch. Late plantings, 7-1. This is a little bit of an experiment. So my Chicago garden, can we plant something on July 1st and something being a tomato? Now, a couple of things here. It's not exactly the fairest experiment. It's in a shadier spot of the garden. It also is in a container, which you have to be much more attentive to. And I don't know as a gardener if I have the capacity, but we're still going to see what happens. All right, so these are the moments where you realize, oh, there's still plants like just all around. So that's oregano. Yeah, okay. All right, we'll get to that. These are the first planting and the real primary planting of potatoes. I did them in containers this year, and I really blame this bed. And I blame this bed not because potatoes were going to go in there, but because this bed distracted me so much this year. I didn't know what was going to happen with it. I built this bed twice, and it just delayed me. And so I had seed potatoes, and yeah. All right, so we ended up finally dropping some pretty late in those containers. Hence this thought also now, me changing my mind and thinking maybe I'll grow some for the fall, which I've never done before. All right, carrots and volunteer basil, which we're going to clip because I can see it starting to, I know it's hard through the netting, but it's starting to try to put on a flower head. So we're going to clip that, which could be our first round of pesto for the season. These are two different varieties of carrots. I've thinned them. It took me a long while to get back to it, but I did. And I have Envy on the left and Danver on the right. And then I have my primary planting of peppers. So I think this is the first time I've grown these in this space. But remember, concrete patio, about 10 inches of soil. These pepper plants look really good. So there's some serranos. You know, let's open this up. Let's not cheat the garden tour. Not for this beautiful set of beds. Okay, though, we have uncovered a couple of spaces here. I mean, one side of it, I mean, that's still a nice view, showing a little leg, a little garden leg. Oh, that basil smells so good. Serranos, which look wonderful. And so many more flowers on them. So it should be like sweet banana here. Bell peppers, like yellow bell pepper here, which is what it looks like as far as a bell pepper. Cali Wonder. Again, I would normally let these plants get bigger before I let them put on fruit, but a lot of this got away from me. I have what's supposed to be a poblano here, but I feel like that may be not a poblano, like maybe I don't know, we'll see. Could be a banana pepper. I have some jalapenos here, some that I actually put on some nice size here. These plants look good. A couple of beets that can be pulled. Eggplant flowers. I just love how they mature. The eggplant flower. This is a good observation, and as the season moves on, we'll see how I did with my spacing here. I think I mentioned I have not grown this particular setup in this space before, so it feels a little tight, but we'll see. Generally, I'm pleased with it. I know. We're going to come back to this. Yeah. All right. So the other space. So these are summer squash, zucchini and yellow squash. And then I have some onions that I should have planted close together because there's going to be green onions, but I didn't. Volunteer basil that I transplanted into those spaces. A couple of peppers, some chard that I really want to start harvesting at kind of this size. This is exactly what I don't want to do with any of my peppers. This plant isn't large enough to sustain itself as far as the peppers go. So we're going to harvest that one and give this plant a chance to grow up. These were volunteer marigolds that I transplanted, and if it's true to whatever the plant was last year, they get pretty large. No, let's not get out of this corner first. All right, so we saw the potatoes. Here are our bucket peppers. And I think when I was planting them, I said maybe I'll put netting on them because I had some digging. But I basically just have it kind of pinned. There's some nails in the fence. So, you know, I use it a lot, but it is a little of a pain. All right, there's some mint here. There is a garden stash there. Pole beans here that I have set up on kind of this trellis that I've put together. This is what I want from the front yard beans, but we're going to continue to be patient. All right, so, I walked right past. So I'll tell you all in a minute kind of why I'm a little scattered with this. So these are the first planted plants for the season, the onions that went in. We planted these together and we had a lot of disturbance, something digging in this space, so that's why we don't have much growing here. Some of these onions look super good. All right, so now on to the beauty that is this Vego garden bed. Oh, I'm not sure what that is. Won't let you be. All right, so cucumbers. And I couldn't be happier with this space. Sweet potatoes. The only challenge here is sweet potatoes can be a little drier as far as your watering habits compared to cucumbers needing, quite a bit of water throughout the season. Then I have pole beans waiting for their flowers to put on, but they are climbing nicely in the middle. And then a different variety of cucumber on this end. So the Vego tall bed is in its 4th year, but this is the first year I've had this trellis added to it. And I did a video either last week or the week before I shared it where we put this together. It's exactly what I wanted it to be. I looked at the blackberry, but we didn't look at the lemon or the blueberry planters. So these GreenStalks have put on my first beans for the season. And I can't remember the name of it offhand, but it was said to actually pick smaller. So I'm gonna keep a close eye on these. I did jade bean for a bush bean everywhere else, but this one is a different and newer variety to me. So almost all flowers this year are volunteer, but isn't that gorgeous? So a lot of those I basically picked out of a place and planted in this space, and some basil. All right, so you promised not to let me forget the grow bags. So this little container section, kale that is just eaten up. So since I have some really nice kale inside of the cage baby, I think I have one more blueberry plant. I think I'm gonna dig this up and plant the blueberry plant there and move it to the front yard. Serrano pepper, potatoes. You see how quickly I gave up on them in the spring, and now I'm like putting potatoes everywhere. All right, so this is supposed to be mint, and one is looking good. This one I thought would come back when I transplanted it, but we'll see. A surprise tomato, probably chocolate sprinkle, but maybe something else based on what happened with the volunteers in the front yard. And I tried sweet potatoes. So this is again another July 1st planting. And then I have one of the container cabbage, which again, cabbage has rejected the heat that we've seen. Right, so a few minutes ago, I said, I'll share why I'm a little bit kind of scattered. And it is because it's been months of planting, building, repairing, redesigning, adjusting plans, and I've had to compartmentalize these things, right? And really kind of focus on this section of the garden, this section of the garden, and so on. And today is the first time that I felt like, even with me doing my garden walks in the morning and sometimes in the evening, it's the first time I've really been able to kind of take the full garden in. And I'm really pleased. I feel like even before we get our bounty, that the work I put in is paying off. And like, this is the joy that's like at the end of the project. We're we're not done, of course. There's plenty to do. We're actually kicking into maintenance mode now, which sometimes is a little bit tougher when it comes to some of the challenges the garden can bring, but I couldn't be happier. Yeah, I hope you could hear the smile in my voice as we walk through some of these things, because it was definitely a smile on my face. Well, all right, that's what I have. I appreciate y'all spending some time with me. We're gonna let that plane pass, and we're gonna wrap up here. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to drop them below. I haven't edited this, of course, but I think this is gonna be a longer video, which I wanna try to get back to occasionally. Like, I feel like we've been cutting things down to try to meet, kind of the desire to see small bites of things, but I'm long-winded in everything I do. So something like this, a video like this, is really more up my alley. So I hope if you're still here, you enjoyed it. And I look forward to seeing y'all on the next one.